Hello, friends. Episode 59. Thank you for being here. Hope you're really well. I got asked to talk about self importance as far as what was written in the Carlos Castaneda books. Um, you know, even in Aikido, Morihei Ueshiba, the founder of Aikido, he said that there is no enemy outside of you. There is an enemy within. And that when you purify your being, then you will face that enemy, and it will become very obvious to you the part of you that is um, engaged in the hijacking of your attention. So we're easily distracted people, and we're always seeking something to look at that would keep us from having to sort of face certain aspects of our being. And so the shaman attempts to face themselves through reviewing the blueprint of their life, through the recapitulation. But self importance is the fact that we're so self absorbed that we struggle to see the beauty, the immense beauty that exists in this realm. But when you become abstract, you start to become unwilling to remain distracted, and you start to pursue real connection, real source activities, being in nature, purifying your being so that you have um, a reset of your nervous system. It's possible to heal your nervous system so completely that you become capable of having all these new feelings come in, right? Because when you make room in your life by having healthy boundaries and getting letting go of the things that are keeping you from thriving, um, then a work-life balance will be presented to you. People that think they're just going to be able to heal once they're retired or when they've made enough money are often living for the future rather than really embracing the now. And I live as if I'm going to disappear at any moment. And so I only do the things that I want to do. And the things that I want to do are beneficial to me long term as well. So I also prepare as if I'm going to be here for like a really, really long time. Because the Toltecs have discovered the fountain of youth. It's just very few people have the courage to pursue something of that intensity. But when you review your life in a very specific way, the way shamans do, they have the opportunity of having an alternative type of death. So lucid dreaming, becoming conscious of your capacity, makes it possible to reevaluate the limitations of our experience, including not just in life but in dying. This is a confronting concept, but self-importance is what makes us think that we have to focus on ourselves rather than become fully engaged in observing energy. So shamans say that you can see energy directly as it flows in the universe, and once that happens to you, you will be opened up in a way that's pretty difficult to then return to your normal life. And a lot of people take psychedelics in order to open up that door, and then struggle to then utilize the challenges of the daily life because they've seen through it. And so you do go through a period of, well, how can I continue to do all this nonsense that doesn't matter? But when you realize that it actually is valid, that all the lesson plans are within whatever direction you go, whatever job you get, whatever person you talk to, there's always an opportunity to have a really unique message come through, or a challenge, or some sort of exposing of your shadow, of the part of you that's resistant to healing, to evolving. So lucid dreaming is very difficult to achieve if you're focused on the the worries and fears and projections of your future, or if you're tripping out on your past and upset with yourself for certain decisions. And so shamans sit with those feelings and they learn to let them move through them as a means to liberate them. They don't dwell on the past. They erase their past. They go back and they erase it. It's called erasing personal history. And that makes it possible to stop the world, to stop seeing the reality that is a projection. Like we are in a holographic projected dream like vision, and we're in it together, but we come in alone and we leave alone, and so there's no way to sort of attach yourself to others. You have to become connected to source in order to become aware of what's really going on. And those that are able to do that and become empowered as an individual can become integrated into the interdependence of humanity in a beautiful, harmonious way, because they're not taking from or judging others. And so the shaman doesn't put themselves above or below anything, including an ant or any sort of animal. And all animals are essentially the Earth Mother. So if you're interacting with animals, you're interacting with the Earth Mother herself. And when that discovery is made, the interconnectedness of all things, then you're observing trees, like you feel their roots, you feel their awareness, their attention. You observe an animal, you feel the majestic nature of their being, that they have a level of intensity and intelligence that is not something that we have access to. The mother is, we have access to it, but not through the programmed limitations in which we typically behave. And so becoming aware of how incredibly aware the Earth Mother is, and then realizing that these magical animals and insects, and they all have a message. They're all part of a really divine design. Shamans use animals for very dynamic understandings. All kinds of crazy stuff happens when you're in your apprenticeship with a real shaman, and they take you out into the wilderness or the jungle, and you will face things that would typically be considered very dangerous. But when you've made a bid for power, the universe sees that, and it gives you opportunities to become really strong and discover the resources that you wouldn't typically tap into. And so learning how to face physical fears is a huge means to wake yourself up. So shamans talk about using death as an advisor, and this will really bringing death into the equation, right? Life is the arena and death is the player. And if it wasn't for death, we wouldn't be as motivated to have experiences or to gain knowledge. There's something driving us, something that gives us intent and purpose if we allow it to. But if we try to pretend it's not there, then we create disharmony and anxieties. So having the courage to sort of face your mortality, but be open to the idea that there's more to our possibilities than what we tend to think, because some of our thoughts are not natural. They're part of the program. That's also very confronting, but self-importance keeps people from being able to see that, which keeps them stable, because facing this program can make you feel unstable. But when you realize that it's just a dream, and the lesson plan is beautiful and well designed, then you're not at odds with the storyline. If it's just a dream, it's not meant to be taken so seriously. But consciousness is the, according to those that have, spoken with the mother, this is about consciousness. This is about becoming aware. And as we become more aware of ourselves, so does the universe become aware of itself, because we are energetic probes, extensions of this force that has bestowed awareness upon us. And so shamans say that you return your memories to that which gave you life, which gave you this experience, but you can do the recapitulation instead of having your memories flash before your eyes when you die. You go and review them ahead of your death, And you can have an alternative form of dying, which is to merge with the mother herself, with the, you know, to sort of align with her on a different layer of her onion, of her multiplicity, her multidimensionality. So the mother is conscious. The mother is offering you opportunity to work with her, to know her, and we are children of this system. We were brought into it to gain the capacity to use what's called the Earth's boost. So when you learn how to get into silence and then use the sunlight that is reflecting off of the water or off the peaks of the mountains, and you move your perception at the right moment, the light will enter you, change you, shift you, and take you into vision, offer you entire views of other ways of being. So this reality, that we're in, is a projection, and it's upheld by the fact that the majority of us are entangled in self-importance so completely that we really don't have the way to connect with others. We can hand our power over to people that are, whether they're cult leaders or concerts or just football or whatever people are sending their energy toward. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I watch sports, I go to concerts, I'm not trying to, extract myself entirely. I'm going very slowly and transitioning, but enjoying everything immensely along the way. And so there will come a time where people will be able to fuse their focus into something much more abstract than their own personal need to be validated. And then this abstract purpose shows up for like the Mayans, when they walked right out of this world. They spent years, likely decades possibly, fusing their intent in order to dream another dream, in order to have access to other layer. And then they kept going in and that other layer and coming out, and eventually they got to know that world so well that they're able to go into it for forever. We are eternal, we are immortal, we don't need to stay in this system that is keeping us from knowing ourselves. So the shaman individuates and uses their individuation in order to go and validate things like front runners, like scouts. They go and discover what's possible and then bring that knowledge back to the people. And so each of us that starts to become a scout in our own respect and fine-tune the gifts that we carry and individuate, we start to free ourselves from this seriousness that we apply to our personal story. So Don Juan said in the books that he became a collection of stories, that he transcended his own story. And so when you recapitulate it enough, your personal history actually feels like just someone else's story. When you're looking at it, you're like, wow, this is a rich story, but it starts to become less and less personal, because you were just one of them. Your story is a glimpse into humanity. Your blueprint teaches you everything that's needed to know. You don't need a teacher. You don't, but you do need the energy and the courage to go and rearrange your trajectory if you want to create your own reality, which is totally possible. And those of us that start to reclaim our power so that we can do things of that nature are given a lot of support because of it. So self-importance is heavy, it's serious, and so shamans are very irreverent, very light, very jovial and excited about their existence, and they're in great appreciation for every moment. They're rather than at odds with what happened to them, or worried about what might happen. They relax into the present, and follow their impulses. When you get told to wake up, hey, it's time to get up in the middle of the night, and you're like, well, that doesn't make sense. Why would I get up? There's something that's going to happen, and you start listening to your impulses and stop telling yourself, well, I have to have this much sleep, or I have to eat this much food, or listen to your body, listen to your heart. It will tell you to do things outside of the normal patterns that make you so predictable. When you stop becoming so predictable, then you start to see the channels of opportunity in which you could become mysterious. Allow yourself to become part of the mystery rather than just be an observer of the mystery. You merge with it. Go out into the wilderness at night alone in the dark. Saturate yourself in feelings that used to be triggering or fearful, and realize that they're not. They're just based on your blueprint. They don't have to be anymore. You can stop telling yourself all these things. Because when you were a child, you had really strong intentions. So whatever fears you created back then became embedded in your storyline. And we just want to be creative about going back, reclaiming our imagination, shifting our perspective. Perspective is everything. It's very hard not to just borrow someone else's perspective. But when you start to have your own contemplations, then you start to, become dynamic. But it's a journey. It's a massive shift to extract yourself from kind of how saturated you are with the people who were in your life and how you are very much like them. But it's okay. I borrow from everyone, and my closest friends and stuff gave me permission to access the joy and liberation that they discovered. And you wear feelings and ideas and concepts on your being, and then you purify them and make them your own. So reading Castaneda over and over and over allowed me to saturate myself in something that most people aren't able to even look at, because it's so confronting what those books really represent, right? So this idea that we're all in this together and we're all dying this romantic tragedy together, it's not true. We're capable as individuals of breaking out of this program, and the more of us that have the courage to do that will give more and more people the permission to do so. And so there really are no others. You are the thing, right? And that sounds selfish, but it actually isn't, because the hero's journey is the thing that will unbind you from the fear program. And when you do that, you become able to just to have ideas of your own that aren't, your imagination returns to you when you reclaim your gratitude. Your gratitude was in place when you were really young. You felt gratitude strongly for your parents, or for your dog, or for the feelings that were running through you. There was affection, really strong amounts of affection moving through you, and it was beautiful. But that's still available for you to return to and access and use in a new way, right? And so falling in love with your potential, and being willing to really spend time processing emotions, so that you are not being governed by undealt with feelings from your past. So it's not easy work, and it's good to go slow. It's not something to try to force, but it is something really, really dynamic that offers a means in which you can slow down your life. When you're really listening, things slow down. You stop distracting yourself, and you open up all the your senses, whether it's just getting out in the cold and the rain and the wind and really letting, walking and getting getting things to come off of you so you can feel the difference between the weight that you've been carrying and your authentic self. And so you realize there's a lot of weight we carry from the projections of our parents or friends, or shame and guilt or confusion that we've gotten snared in because of the way in which the world operates. And you just start telling the difference between what's a projection and what's real. And these clarities are meant to happen to you naturally, not through reading a book or something. It sort of happens because you allow this process and make room for it in your life. Ask, I'd like to be more connected, and I'd like to have the things surface that I need to surface in order to know myself. And they will, and just and then the shadow will surface and try to stop that process because it has fear of moving on. It wants to sort of hijack the storyline because it didn't get to be heard in the past, and now it has an opportunity to. And so then you feel a lot of some challenges with that, differentiating what is the undealt with trauma, and how to nurture that part of your being so that you're not creating a shame and guilt cycle. The shame and guilt is like the lower vibration of all of it. So regardless of what's happened already, it's how we transcend it by forgiving ourselves and others. When you truly forgive yourself, when you make peace with where you're at, then you instantly forgive all, because forgiveness moves into your heart. And that's what really the heart, the path of heart, healing your heart, opening your heart. That's where it makes all these miracles happen, where you really fall in love with your life. It doesn't have to be some grandiose story in order for you to love your existence. In fact, it's usually people that labor physically for a living that have some of the most deepest belly laughs and joy in their life. And people that would appear to be struggling, they fall in love with the struggle too, and so they have some real incredible value to offer. And everyone has challenges. You're either the excess money that weighs you down, because money is one of the heaviest energies in the world, or the lack of that makes life so difficult and terrifying. But when you really start to follow your intuition, it'll lead you to a place where you recognize that you have the power to pull yourself up, and you also have the power to not become seduced by the material world. That you not have expectations outside of what would keep you in harmony. And so it just gets really obvious over time. But that's that dance, that's that coming to terms with the program that isn't that easy to surface from, very confronting. But we're in a time where more and more people are really tapping into their resources and getting more honest about where they're at. So that makes for a thinner veil, a means in which one can feel supported in their journey to know themselves through their aloneness. Getting to know yourself is the way in which you get to know what the abstract cores are, what the universal lesson plan is. And don't be afraid, to spend the time alone when you're called to it. There's a reason why you feel that way. And don't be afraid to turn off the lights and just sit with yourself and really feel your feelings. Music obviously helps, really give yourself permission to open up that door of flooding your ears with sounds that make you feel um, connected and alive and liberated. And if you're able to dance in the dark alone, start to move your body around in your arms and spin and do all the things that give you the capacity to move any stagnant energy. And when that becomes your priority, to move stagnant energy, and you don't want to live with the discomfort of that, then you're on a path of celebration, whether you know it or not. Moving energy can happen through multiple ways. When you find what works for you, don't be afraid to fully get into it. So self-importance is not something that really ever goes away. You will be interacting with self-importance for the remainder of your time here. The ego does get more and more intelligent as you become aware of it. It evolves as you evolve, as a means to make sure that you either kind of give up on your purpose, or that you think you're special because you found your purpose. It either figures out a way to keep you down, or it tries to hijack you so that you stay outside of your resiliency zone, that you go too high and start to identify with these accomplishments, and that's how the ego hijacks you, right? So it's always in place to make sure that your lesson plan is constant. And I wouldn't want it any other way. Like, there is no finish line. There's just striving for the intensity to become accessible, so that you get to know your desire and your passion, and have a romance with knowledge. And those that go toward knowledge will have an exhilarating existence, but it will confront you. It'll take you out of your comfort zone. As you start to feel your potential, you'll be called to the challenge, and there's great purpose in that. So the heaviness is possible to lighten, absolutely, and it will get lighter and lighter, and then you learn how to ground. You learn how to develop roots, like whether it's through martial arts or shamanic movements. You learn how to connect to the Earth Mother as a means to stabilize your transition from being heavy to becoming light enough to do dreaming. And if you start to get into the dreaming world, you turn the mundane into magic. What you would be considered just a night of sleep or some interesting dreams becomes the possibility of walking into other worlds, actual validating other energetic structures, being downloaded and shown and told things that are so much more interesting than any truther could ever unveil. These are real personal downloads, input about your relationship with eternity. And see, that's the romance of knowledge. That's where it gets really beautiful and alive and magical, and your eyes shift. Everything gets, as twilight comes in, you start to turn into like an animal, because the twilight is the crack between worlds, where you start to intuit the other side of the coin. So if you can learn how to hang out and use twilight as for these much more intense contemplations, almost, or understandings or observations. But if you get really silent in the wilderness during twilight, then you'll see energy. You'll start to feel the aliveness of everything. And It's very, very rewarding, but again, you have time. When you're doing this kind of work, the universe typically will make sure that you get to stick around because you're doing something really dynamic. So the movements that shamans teach counteract disease. They bring in energy that you typically wouldn't even know exists. The majority of the world has no idea. And so this is all going to become more and more of interest to others. So thank you for your time, friends. Take care.